Hey PC Gamers, and welcome back to the PC Gamer Chat Log. I am Lauren Morton.
And hey everyone, I'm Mollie Taylor.
And this week, Mollie and I have invited on the editorial director of the PC Gaming show that we do twice a year, Jake Tucker, to talk about asymmetrical co-op, which is the most unsexy name for a very fun type of game. It doesn't have a cool, fun name. We're talking about things like the We Were Here series, like Operation Tango. We're going to talk a little bit about like Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, and a little bit about like It Takes Two, and like some of the supermassive horror games. Maybe there's kind of a spectrum, we're going to realize, of asymmetric co-op games that we've all played a little bit of. But before we get to that part, Mollie, what have you been playing last week?
Yeah, so I've been playing some new stuff in the last week, one of which I can't talk about yet, but just let it be known that when I can talk about it, I will not shut up about it. So
you're going to be so annoying.
I'm going to be so annoying about it. I'm going to be the most annoying when I can talk about it. So enjoy the piece while it lasts. But something I can talk about that I played was UFO 50, which is like the collection of retro-inspired games that's been made by like a handful of really talented developers. The Spelunky, including the Spelunky developer. So it's like all of these, they're all unique. They're all they're like retro, but they have like modern kind of gameplay. I think that's the whole pitch of UFO 50. And they're all in like chronological order, so they all have like years attached to them as well. So like from the early 80s to the late 80s, and you can kind of see like the evolution in graphics and game design like throughout that. It's really, really interesting. It's like deliberately obtuse in a way that doesn't necessarily like hit with me. Like, I get it's meant to be a nostalgia thing, but I'm like 28, so the kind of deliberate obtuseness of it is not really something that like specifically hits with me. But I have really been enjoying kind of going into a game and having these really weird little like aha moments when I finally figure out like what I'm supposed to be doing. One of my favorites is Party House, which is it's a deck building strategy game where you invite a bunch of people into a party. You either get popularity or you get cash, and there's like different types. Some of them like give popularity and like take away cash, or like some of them have like a little trouble like icon on them, and if you get 3 troublemakers, then the police come and your turn is over. Like it's really really, really cool. It is like
this is the most abstract concept for a party.
It's amazing. And I love it. I love it so much. That is the one I played the most. There's like a really cool like puzzle platformer as well called Mortal. Like for ages I was like, how do I get past this like huge row of spikes, because I can't jump over it? And then I realized that I had to like die on the spikes and then use like my next life to like jump on my corpse and and then like get over. And it's that was like one of those little aha moments that I really loved. But yeah, it's great. Just a really great collection of mini games. And I know our strategic director Evan, I know all weekend I just kept seeing on Steam, he was like coming up playing it. I think he said he put like 20 hours into it like over the weekend, which like
when Evan gets into a trending game, Evan is into the trending game.
Yeah, like all weekend I just saw it kept popping up that he was playing it. So I'm not quite on 20 hours. I played like 5 or 6 hours maybe over the weekend, but genuinely like fantastic. Really, really good game. Yeah, that was me.
Nice. I didn't play like a lot, but I did go back for Shadows of Doubt. I talked about this like either early this year or late last year, the like immersive sim murder mystery, like procedurally generated city thing. I got into it a little bit late after its early access, and then I went back to it this past weekend because I knew that like the 1.0 launch is happening this week. And as of speaking, Joshua Wolin, one of our news writers, just posted his review for it and gave it an 83. And of course, I've gone back to it before the 1.0 version actually comes out. he had it early to review. I have not touched that part yet, so I should have been patient. But I was like, this weekend, I was like itching for it. I just want to do a little bit of investigation, a little mystery. It's a very cool game. It like generates a city for you. All the people that go in it, their jobs, all the apartments, and they're connected by like ductwork. And you have to like start out, go to the scene of a crime, like investigate the body, like take fingerprints, like try to figure out exactly how they died, what their murder weapon could be. And then you're like going around the city just trying to figure out from there, like who could have done it. You're like, oh, okay, I have no clues, except there's one fingerprint at the scene of the crime that doesn't belong to the victim. How am I going to find out whose fingerprint that is? Like, okay, I'm going to hack into their computer, look at their recent emails. Where did they work? So the next thing I did was like, all right, I guess I'm going to go to the office where she worked. So I go there, I have to sneak in. They don't want me to be in the break room of her office. Why would they not want me there? And I finally break into like the boss's office, and I start looking at his fingerprints. His fingerprints were the ones from the scene of the crime. I'm like, did he kill her? And why? I don't know. But like, I've managed to match him to his fingerprints, but like, where's the murder weapon? I'm going to have to probably like climb through some ductwork to get into his house while he's not there to see if he has a gun hidden in his safe or something. And it's very cool. You actually have to piece together all these things and like make sticky notes and put the things on the cork board to like connect the bits. Like, just because I know I'm like, it's gotta be him, I have to get his fingerprints. I have to make sure like those are his fingerprints and connect them to the crime scene and like truly put the evidence together. So it's very cool. Love it. I'm excited to see what things are new in the like 1.0 launch of that game. And I'm very jealous since Josh has been getting to play it and reviewed it. So I'm going to jump into that. You'll probably hear me talk about it next week at this rate. So with that all done, then let's go grab Jake to talk about co-op games. Hey, Jake, thank you for joining us to talk about asymmetric co-op games, which is a like not nonsensical. It's just not a very catchy term for a kind of game where I said in chat, I was like, who's played things like this? And you're like, I have. I've played lots of Operation Tango, in fact. Isn't that the one that you shouted out and you were like, I want to come on and talk about this?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Operation Tango forever because I played it with a friend of mine, Jenny Woffrey. She works over at IGN, and we played it and we loved it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to write about this. And then 8 months later, I hadn't, and things have moved on. So I still have opinions about that game, and I was excited to kind of like finally end.
Yeah, it's cool to talk about them today. I think you're right, Lauren. Like, asymmetrical co-op is probably the least catchy term for what is undoubtedly one of the most interesting, like, genres. It's such an interesting, like I guess a subgenre. That I really enjoy, but we don't see many of them, and B, they don't get talked about a whole lot, I guess.
Yeah. So, like, basically, what I'm talking about here is I think it's easiest to think about it like in comparison to a different thing that's a lot more popular, which is the asymmetrical PvP, right? Like everybody knows Dead by Daylight. You get in, one person's a killer who has a whole thing that killers do, and the other group of people are the victims who have a whole other set of things that they do, and they're, competitive. It's PvP. And it's asymmetrical because you're not doing the same stuff. In an asymmetrical co-op game, it's a game where you're working together. You're not killer and victim. You're on the same side trying to do something, but you have very different responsibilities, different roles. Like your activities in the game are super different. And I think it wasn't my first touch point, but I think actually when we came around on it, we were like, oh, It Takes Two is probably the easiest touchstone that the most people have played or thought about, because it is like you're together the whole time. It's split screen, but you're together. But you do, in every section of It Takes Two, that like co-op Haze-like game, you have different goals. Like one person's got a gun, the other person, and you like do totally different things, but you're working together, and that is asymmetrical.
Yeah, you always get different, because the kind of abilities that you have change from level to level in that game, but you never ever have the same ability.
Right.
And I think as well, when I was thinking on it, I think that also plays into, for me, what separates asymmetrical co-op to like regular co-op as well, is I think asymmetrical co-op, there's a lot more individual responsibility. I think you're both expected to have some kind of level of skill, and quite often asymmetrical co-op relies on you both kind of put in the work in, or like all of you put in the work in to reach the goal, whereas like some other co-op, like like a
it's not
co-op shooter or something.
Yeah, where your friends can carry you.
Where you can kind of get carried or something, you know, like if you're like not much of a gamer, like it's not as bad because you've got someone who can kind of make up the slack. But in a lot of asymmetrical co-op, and especially in It Takes Two, like
you can't get carried.
If you're both not there, if you're both not on the same page, like shit ain't getting done, you know?
So tell me about Operation Tango, Jake, because this is the one I was interested in, but haven't actually tried myself. What are the roles in that? How does it work?
So you are basically both spies, but you are spies that are kind of working in tandem to get shit done, actually. I feel like we should just lock the two of you in Operation Tango until you come out. I feel that would be a solid way of doing it. But so what it often means is that one of you is on a camera and has like an elevated view of the room and can like fiddle with some security systems, while the other one of you is going in and is able to fiddle with security systems that get you more access. You know, so you're kind of watching and you're like, oh, there's a guard coming this way, or you need to be careful for this. And then on the next level, it will reverse, and you'll be the person scurrying around under tables trying to avoid guards. What I like about it is that, and I think the reason it works so well is that all of those puzzles are really, really nicely designed, and they're designed to encourage you to talk to each other. I think that's kind of where asymmetrical co-op is really interesting for me, is that you have to talk about your capabilities and what's possible. So you're like, look, I can see these guards and I can turn off the laser grid for you as you run towards it. But I'm like, but as soon as you hit that laser grid, you need to pull this lever so that I can get to that camera. Otherwise, I won't be able to tell you what's ahead. And I feel like you kind of, you pre-game, you plan, and then you go for it. And when it doesn't work, you're like, oh, okay, let's try again. But this time, instead of deactivating the laser grid, if I like shut this door so it will slow him down. And I think it's funny because the dream for me growing up is I really loved the idea of this video game that was like a multiplayer where one of you was sneaking into a facility and the other one of you was like the guy in the van. I always loved this idea of like the van guy. So I play Lethal Company as an asymmetrical co-op game because I am not going into that fucking facility for any reason. And so I will sit there and I will be on the radio and I will be like, hey, I see this stuff on the scanner. I play that asymmetrically. And so Operation Tango scratched that itch for a game that I wanted since I was a kid, and that's kind of what, for me, a very good asymmetrical co-op game does, is I get to sit in a van, and I do the same thing in Phasmophobia. We've kind of stopped talking about that now, but, you know, I'll sit there and I'll look at people's stress levels, and people will ask me to bring stuff into the house, and I'll be like, how scary is it in there right now? Because I'm not coming in if it's too scary.
I'm so glad that you mentioned, like, the communication side of it as well, because I think that is, like, such an integral component to asymmetrical co-op as well.
Yes.
Right? Again, with regular co-op, you can kind of just do your thing and it'll work out, right? But I think something that's so fun and engaging about about asymmetrical co-op is the fact that you kind of have to talk to each other and you have to puzzle it out like as a group, right? And that is just something that you don't really get in a lot of other games. I think it is something that's like super special, I think, to asymmetrical co-op for sure.
And I think it's so unique because if you look at, so Fear 3 is an asymmetrical co-op game, right? If you play it, one of you plays as the point man, and he's the man that can slow time down and shoot one of the bad guys. And the other person you play is Paxton Vettel, his dead brother, who is so psychically powerful that he can manifest himself and possess enemies and kind of run around. And actually, to play it is so much fun. Like if you play it in single player or you're playing the point man, you're just playing a standard shooter. But if you're playing the other guy, you are a ghost that can go through walls and possess people and like encourage them to shoot their friends. And, you know, there's power. But because it's a shooter and you're just kind of constantly charging around, you don't ever really have that communication. And I think I think the communication is something that I think is crucial. Like another game that I always think about is Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, right?
Yes.
And that's obviously one of you is kind of, I think the true way to play this is in VR. So one of you is there in a room with a bomb and the rest of you are kind of looking at the screen. But the way that I played it for the first time was I was at a games conference in Berlin and someone had set it up. So one of you could see the screen and was kind of locked in, and the rest of us had this actual manual and we were desperately flicking through the manual. And I think that's like the purest experience of it for me because, you know, the game is only like, the game has no information in it whatsoever. You're literally just looking at this bomb and you can interact with it in a very scant way. All of it comes down from the communication and the hidden knowledge that one person has and the other person doesn't, that you need to relay so that, you know, nobody explodes.
Yeah, hidden knowledge and communication. That is definitely like the core bedrock of these things. That's basically the headline that I wrote when I first wrote about the We Were Here series for the website. Was that like it's a game where you are the puzzle, because it is you and your friend. Like the We Were Here series, I won't ever shut up about this. Like as long as I'm in charge of our best co-op best co-op games list, it will be on there. The first one is free and it's only like 2 or 3 hours or something. But what happens is you get separated in this spooky castle from your friend. You have a walkie-talkie and you're both in separate rooms. And like you described, Jake, you're like talking to each other and you're like, okay, what do you see? And you're like, I see a wall and there's a bunch of symbols on it. What do you see? And you're like, okay, I'm in this room and there's like a bunch of levers. And then you're like, okay, pull one of the levers and see what happens. And then you like slowly start to work out, okay, when you pull this lever, this symbol lights up. Oh, and then when you do them in this order, this happens. And like each room is that kind of puzzle. But the trick is that you can't see what the other one is looking at. So you just have to describe to each other what this symbol you're looking at is, what kind of levers you've got, how they might be connected. And you're just entirely like trying to imagine what the other person is experiencing. And that's the beauty of it. Yeah, it's like the communication is the puzzle. Like you are trying to figure out, like, get in your friend's head, basically.
I think they're very influential games as well, even though you don't really think about them so much. Like there's elements of that to, you think of Helldivers 2, right? When you're like aligning satellite dishes and that, it's like one person has the map of where the satellite dish needs to push and the other person is pushing it around. Like I don't think that they are asymmetrical co-op games at all, but I definitely think that co-op experience has started to take big chunks from that because people like that. You want to feel like you're a valuable part of a team, and I think that's kind of very exciting for everyone.
Yeah. I love you mentioning also being the van guy in Phasmophobia, because I was trying to think about how to like explain this and why like the asymmetric co-op games haven't like taken off or been this big thing in the same way that these like silly proximity chat, like goofy horror games like Mollie, whatever you were calling them, funny horror or something like that. Those have taken off because they're highly repeatable sandboxes, right? You can just go in, you can play so many rounds of Phasmophobia, and it doesn't get old, basically. Like, at least not for me. Like, I can still turn on Phasmophobia and have a great time, or Lethal Company, or like any of the other newer ones. And the games that we're talking about, one of their flaws is that you can kind of only play them once, because once you figure out the puzzle, it's a puzzle. Like the sandbox.
Yeah.
Sandbox is sexy. It's clippable. It's on Twitch. It's hilarious. And watching, a friend like think through a puzzle for like an hour as you try to puzzle it out together. A, not as like hot and clippable, and B, not as repeatable. Once you've solved it, you know the answer. And I can't go play the same game with a different friend because I already know the answers. What am I going to do? Pretend I don't?
Yeah, I think that's more of a fault of like just puzzle genres in general, right? Like,
true.
You're not seeing me like replaying like the Professor Layton series, for example, because like I love a good puzzle, but if I know the answer, then what's the point, right? I do think definitely, like I said, I think it's more of a fault of the puzzle genre itself, but I think it's because asymmetrical co-op, I think, lends itself so well to being puzzly,
puzzles,
and that satisfaction of working it out with someone else. And like you said, you can't play It Takes Two with one person, be like, oh my god, that was so fun, and then go play it with someone else, because you lose some of that.
It's done.
That special experience. I think there's a real special feeling, I think, that comes from doing it for the first time and working through it with somebody else. And at least with like, Lethal Company or Phasmophobia, you can kind of have a mixture of people who are new and people who are veterans, and like that's okay. But yeah, maybe that's why there just aren't as many asymmetrical co-ops out there, because it's hard to make them replayable. It's hard to make them like, there's nothing wrong with a unique one and done experience. I love a good unique, like this game gives me a great feeling and then that's it. Like, I'm super down for that, but I know that in the year of our Lord 2024
for a developer, of a one-off experience.
And I do think that the best asymmetrical co-op for me is something that is super crafted, right? So I played Operation Tango, and like we sat down and played for an hour, we finished it in 5, and just played the whole thing, and we could never play again. I really enjoyed it. I think we had a really good time, but like those puzzles only work when you are like, I want to solve this wire puzzle, but I need to work it out before this guard gets to me. So you're very quickly like trying to like mind map that out, And I think as soon as you know, it loses a lot. So A Way Out, for example, which is the game that Hazelight made, It Takes Two.
That's the prison one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're actually in prison for like a very short amount of time. And that's the best bit of the game. It's not like that game, they're like, hey, you're in prison, break out. And then like an hour in, they're like, no, you're out of prison. What are you going to do now? And I'm like, I don't know, man.
I thought that was the game. And then there's a whole third-person shooter segment at the end of that game. That game was so strange.
It really goes off, but the prison is really fascinating because it's like you have these similar roles and you just kind of like run around and it's super well crafted. But as soon as you work out, I just need to hide you behind this laundry basket while I'm pretending to do laundry. It's amazing to discover that, but you can never revisit that. And I think it only works because it is so well crafted. If it was just like a normal, I don't know, you play Payday, and you're like, I'm going to be stealthy by sliding behind this car. Like I don't feel smart for doing that. Whereas when I'm like hiding my buddy in a laundry basket, or I'm like sending my friend out of an opposite door so the guard turns to look at him and I can unscrew a vent cover so I can escape. But that makes me feel smart. And I think you only get that in games when a developer has set that up for you. I never feel smart in a sandbox, generally,
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the tough thing about it. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, now that I'm just like imagining the possibilities, like Mollie, you're pointing out, like puzzles is what makes it less repeatable. Like it would be cool if there was a sandbox. I now want a game that doesn't exist, or if it does exist, someone please tell me, that is designed to be played the way that you play Phasmophobia, Jake, where instead of it being a killer and victims in Dead by Daylight, there is a designated van guy. That's your job. Not because you chose it, not because you like are choosing it in that moment, but because you chose, you're like, I'm playing the van guy this time, which has X roles on the monitors, and you all are doing XYZ. But the prox chat horror games are very based on like, you're all interchangeable little cogs, just like doing your goofy little things. Like you just moment to moment choose. Are you?
Yeah. And I mean,
hiding in the van.
I play Lethal Company a whole bunch, or used to play Lethal Company a whole bunch with Ellie and Kara, who are both on PC Gamer. And like, they're probably about as scared as I am. But like, I'm going to stay here. And then you just hear like screams rolling over the hill. Like, open the door, open the door, open the door. As they like run back across. And it's like, the experience for it is very different. I think a really interesting example of this, and it's not quite true, is Space Station 13, kind of years back. It basically has every player inhabits a role on a spaceship. And, some of you are security officers and you're making sure that like threats to the station are dealt with, and they can be other players, they can be AI generated. Some of you, but like some of those roles are like, you're the medics. And so if anyone is hurt, they'll come to you and you have to patch them up. And you have to patch them up because some of those people could be engineers. And if there's like a meteor tears a hole in that station, you're going to need the engineers to build stuff. Or you need like a janitor just to clean up all of the blood and mess because people slip on that, or like cargo to get stuff in. One of you can play the station AI, which is like, as far as I'm concerned, the ultimate bad guy job. You just sit in your AI core and you open doors for people and you bolt doors and you electrify stuff and, you just make sure things work.
Putting your phone on the side.
Yeah. Like the AI role is I play a lot of Space Station 14, which is like a modern remake that's still in like the playtesting phase. It's in the PC Gaming Show. And like, you play the AI on that, and it's very much like, I don't want to be too involved in these people's lives. I'm just going to keep a vague eye on stuff. But I think there's definitely like a hunger. People really want that. The only sandbox I've ever seen that really makes that work is Space Station 14, and that's because a lot of randomly generated events come up, and it's mechanically so complex. Everyone does have different capabilities, but it's not even just given to you by your role necessarily. It's because some players know how to do different things and others do not, and it's very poorly explained. I wouldn't say that was like a positive, but it's really interesting when you're like, people who play engineer for hundreds and hundreds of hours in Space Station 14 know how to fix stuff faster and in more efficient ways than people who are just starting. And so suddenly it's like, I can save the station. That's my role, and the other people are kind of helping you with that. But I like... Armor Freeze co-op actually is kind of asymmetrical in a way that I think is interesting. Most people discount a lot of military shooters, and I think that's reasonable. But like, when you have kind of one guy and he's like, I have the big machine gun, and the other guy's like, cool, well, I'm the medic and I keep everyone standing. And another guy's like, well, I have the rocket launcher. So if a tank shows up, I will shoot it. I think it's very, very interesting as kind of an inversion of the power fantasy that shooters give you when you run into a situation that your character is not equipped to deal with, and the best thing you can do is step back and let someone else have their hero moment. I think is a really compelling thing in like the play space for me, right? Because it's like you're kind of shooting everyone with your machine gun and you're like, yeah, this is fantastic, I'm really enjoying this, and you set up and you cover like a route, and then like a tank comes around the corner and you're like, now I'm going to go lay in this ditch and let my friend with the rocket launcher shoot them, and if he messes up, we're all dead. And so everyone gets that cool moment, and I just think it's quite nice to like, I think fucking with that power fantasy a little bit is really fascinating. And I think kind of Operation Tango does that a little bit, kind of loop us around in a big way, right? You're like the coolest stealth badass ever until you're not. And like, and I just kind of enjoy that. And I think that's something asymmetrical co-op does very well, is that it's not just, as you were saying before with shooters, it's not that you can just kind of go, oh, well, I'm a badass, so I can carry my entire team. I'm going to run off and do the objectives because I'm just so good at this that it doesn't matter. It's like you cannot deal with this with what you currently have, and so you have to step back and bring someone else in. And I think that's when co-op really works.
Okay, you're Hitman, but what about Hitman's handler? That's the real hero.
We just want to be bad guys, is what I'm seeing.
I've now had a wretched thought. Are MMOs asymmetrical co-op?
No, we're not talking about classes, Molly. No, that's
MMOs,
different.
No, because you're in a raid. Okay, you're in a raid and you're a DPS. MMO raids are asymmetrical co-op, and you cannot tell me otherwise. Okay, you go into a raid and there are specific mechanics that like only tanks can handle, or only DPS can handle, or only healers can do, and like you all have to do your like own individual little tasks during the raid. MMO raids are asymmetrical co-op. In Final Fantasy 14, in the new expansion Dawn Trail, one of the duties, like the content that people have loved the most is the first trial, Valley Garmanda, where there is a mechanic in it where only the tanks can do it. It's like a big old tower, and then like the boss does like a massive like conal, like a 95% arena conal thing, but the tanks have to like stand right at the front and they have to take it. And that mechanic is like, you can't do that with a healer or a DPS. So, you know, there's some mechanics where like the DPS have to like scurry off and like do like another thing, or else the party wipes. So maybe I'm just talking out my ass.
I'm going to agree with you, because as soon as you said Final Fantasy and started talking, I didn't understand like 90% of the words in the sentence from that point onwards.
Victory by confusion, my favorite kind of victory.
The more you guys mention, the more I'm just like imagining things that don't exist. Like, what about a game that's a tower defense game, but you have separate roles and you can't switch? Like, what if somebody's the boss and somebody
selection.
Of what? What is it?
Natural Selection 2 is a game that's like, it's two teams fight each other, except that one player on each team is playing an RTS game and everyone else is playing actual other soldiers.
Oh my god.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
So it's more of an RTS than a tower defense, but like I think the key thing of asymmetrical co-op, right, is that the more you look for it, the more you see elements of it basically everywhere.
Yeah. It's like dotted around.
It's a very popular, people like that. Even the original Gears of War, right? It's like, oh, you and, you know, Marcus and Dom have been separated by a falling chunk of concrete. You must make your way through these two passages to get back together. I think it's just coming back to what I was saying about power fantasy, right? It kind of kicks that away, and it's like, you've got to make this work now. Individual responsibility.
Our little chimp brains are so easily pleased. As soon as it's like you get to do something different and it's like a modicum of personal responsibility, and you're like, yeah, I am helping. This would fall apart if it wasn't for me.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
This is I think this is like a taco sandwich situation where I'm going to want to make an alignment, like an axis chart, and be like, okay, asymmetrical function versus asymmetrical setting versus PvP versus co-op, and then make this like chart where everything that we're talking about falls on it, because there's definitely some like purist things. Like we were talking about keep talking and nobody explodes. Very pure asymmetrical
that
experience
is pure asymmetrical.
Versus Final Fantasy 14 raids, which are debatable.
I don't know how I managed to squeeze that fucking game
That's
into
a taco, just to be clear. That
is a taco. That's not a sandwich.
Honestly, I think it's a skill at this point to be able to relate that game to like every single thing that we talk about on this podcast. I want to ask about it.
Like,
go ahead, Jake. Go ahead.
I was going to mention the supermassive horror games because, like,
that's exactly what I was going to do. Is bring up the other edge case. What about supermassive horror games?
Are they? Aren't they?
What do you think?
I think they are in a way, but they're not. Like, I don't know, because so obviously for anyone who doesn't know, the Dark Pictures anthology, right? The
Man of
Supermassive
Medan,
Game,
Little Hope, those
Man of Medan,
things.
The Quarry,
The Quarry, yeah.
They allow you to, because they have like a cast of playable characters, right? And those games, I think all of them bar Until Dawn, allow you to assign characters to multiple players. So if you want to like play with if you want several people playing one playthrough, because like I don't know about you guys, but in these like kind of narrative things, I would quite often play them with friends and we would like maybe make decisions together. But these games allow you to actually assign the characters to players, right? So it's like, oh, it's this character's turn in the story now, pass the controller to this player kind of thing. So like, and ultimately I guess like the decisions you make on that character can affect what happens to the other characters. Like, I don't know.
Oh, you can get people killed, because my friend
you could get killed. Yeah.
I remembered playing, so I played, I think, House of Ash or House of Ashes, which is the aliens one. Your soldiers, in like a desert in Iraq. It's great, but like
with Ashley Tisdale. Ashley Tisdale. Wait, Ashley Tisdale's in it. Why have I not played this? Oh my god, I love her.
She's like the CIA woman, right? And I was playing as a CIA guy.
She's the one who looks like Ashley Tisdale.
So my friend had played it before, and I don't know who Ashley Tisdale is. You just are very excited about her.
Oh my god!
What did she do? Sorry, Molly. Is she in Final Fantasy 14?
She said, one of the greatest songs of our generation. Absolute banger. Also, she was in High School Musical. So
yes, High School Musical is the real answer.
I'm sorry, but look, everyone else, like Vanessa Hudgens is in Bad Boys, and I'm like, hey, look, she's doing well for herself. I'm like proud, secondhand, as if I'm somehow responsible for Vanessa Hudgens' career. But it was so funny playing that, because yes, like the things that I could do as the CIA guide is divorced from Ashley Tisdale, or like wander around and look at stuff, and he has his skills. And my friend who had played it before thought it'd be really funny to just make me look like the most divorced man on the planet, because every time I'd like hint at reconciliation, the other player gets to choose their thing, and I'm like, but maybe after this we could maybe make things work again. And she's like, no, I left you for a reason, and the vampires attacking us in the desert, I'm going to change that. And I'm like, okay, and I go off to the corner. But I can't believe that you were more sure that Final Fantasy 14 was a asymmetrical co-op game than the very clearly asymmetrical co-op games at the heart of Supermassive.
Well, it's because like with the Supermassive games, right? It's normally one controller, right? You are very, very rarely actually.
I played them totally separate from friends.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was like one controller. I thought you were like very rarely doing anything at the same time.
You can do it that way, but there's also, if you're like separate, like I played them with my best friend, like separate from each other, different places during COVID, like one Xbox to another, and yeah, there's times when it's like, oh, this is so and so's turn, and you're just watching them do things, and then there's other times when you are actually playing at the same time, and those are some of the actual like most critical points of. Especially like Man of Medan, but I imagine they have one of those like gags in each one of them where like you're doing separate things and you don't know what's going on and you're both yelling at each other, and I don't want to spoil what happens in Man of Medan, but
I have only ever done it once, and that was playing Man of Medan with my dad,
passing
like
the controller,
in the same room, passing the controller back and forth. I'm spreading misinformation for fun at this point. Sorry.
Is Man of Medan the underwater?
It's the
battleship one.
I actually do want to. I really want to talk about the bit in that, because I think you're talking about the same thing that I'm talking about, and it's so good and so interesting.
I haven't finished it. La 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 la.
It's okay. Spoilers for Man of Medan. There's a part where you're both in a hallway, right, Jake? Is that what you're talking about? And you don't recognize each other. That's the important part. You don't recognize each other, and you're confused and scared.
Look at it in kind of, I think the simplest way is that combat occurs in this corridor. The two of you are in the corridor, and you may not necessarily realize that you are combating each other if you don't communicate. And I find that really so I didn't watch that. I didn't play that. But I watched during lockdown, my friend was playing it, and just the sudden screams as he goes, no, I think that's me. No, I think that might be me. And then the other guy's like, I think that is me. And they're just yelling at each other. And so they deliberately don't do the quick time events that lead you to be good at combat. Because if you do the events to quick time and make you good at combat, you could feasibly kill each other. I don't know. I didn't see that version. Cool. They worked it out. But I think that was a really good idea.
It's
and I'm sorry for the spoilers. I've just kind of...
Yes, it is.
It's the hidden knowledge again, except...
the power fantasy.
Yeah, except neither of you know anything. So
Supermassive does that a lot.
From everyone.
Supermassive does that a lot in those horror games, in the Dark Pictures and in the Quarry and whatever else, there are times when actually failing is the right choice. And you've just been so conditioned to do the quick time event properly that you're like, wait, do I want this to be happening right now? You're just so obedient, and you don't realize that, oh no, I just made things worse. I should have actually screwed up. And how could you have possibly thought you were supposed to screw up? But there are times.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in a bunch of these narrative games, they always say sometimes doing nothing is the correct answer. I don't listen to that.
Do I
ever do stuff?
Yeah, do I ever take that advice on board? Do nothing in
button
my
prompt
video game.
On the screen, press the button. Hello.
Yeah,
I'm a monkey with a controller. I do what I'm told.
Yeah, don't tell me to do nothing.
And then for it, man.
Yeah.
The A button is there and it's flashing. What do you want from me?
I had to do a quick time event on my phone yesterday because I rented a bike to get home from the train station, and it was hey, it's 11:30 at night. Just to make sure you're fine, when the sign pops up, you need to hit your phone. I guess to test that my response times were fine and I was not inebriated. But I was like, oh cool, I'm just doing a quick time event in real life now.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like that at all.
But I actually, this isn't symmetrical co-op at all, but I feel like it comes from Fahrenheit. So at the very end of Indigo Prophecy, Fahrenheit, depending on where you grew up, it was the first David Cage game that was good. At the very end of it, you've gone completely mad, and you're hallucinating bugs falling out of the vents and all of that stuff, and you can react to get out of the way of the bugs, except the bugs don't exist. And everyone else judges you really weirdly if you dive to the floor away from the bugs. So the correct thing to do is just to press nothing, take the negatives, and just get showered in imaginary bugs.
Yummy.
I want to bring us around to the We Were Here series and actually gush about that one a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of know about this.
I vaguely described it. So the first one of them is free. It's only a couple hours. And they all include puns. There's We Were Here. There's We Were Here 2, TOO2. We Were Here Together, and then We Were Here Forever, and then now there's We Were Here the Friendship.
One, right? Sounds like a song.
Yeah, and so each of them are these campaigns where every time you get split up from your friend and you have a walkie-talkie and you're trying to communicate what's going on in your rooms, and they're very cool because we've talked about, they're puzzles, and they've kind of gotten harder over time though. I highly recommend the first one. It's very very puzzly, very thinky for the most part. It does put you through some time segments a little bit, but you get to the second game, there's a labyrinth bit in the second game where you have to shout your friend and guide them. You're looking down on this big circular labyrinth and you have to tell them how to walk through it to get out of it within a time limit. A, good luck. And then B, when you fail 3, 4, 5 times, it resets every time in a different shape. So you can't memorize it. You just have to actually achieve it at some point. That part is so hard. There's another part in the second one where you're one person is a chess piece, and the other person's trying to tell them what to do. And there's
is this Harry Potter?
A little, and there's a part with medieval weapons. That part is so fun as well because there's different maces, flails, axes, and there's this puzzle where you have to be choosing the correct ones. And again, it's not a spoiler because you figuring out how to talk to each other is the real answer, and figuring out what you're supposed to be doing with them. But it revolves around you in the moment, ad hoc, developing a shared language around what you think axes should be called, and whether they have two heads or one head, and whether they're really big or they're curved, and what the backside of it looks like, and you just like shouting a description of an axe at your friend and hoping they understand. You're like, no, not that one, the other, a double-sided with a pointy back, and there's two hands, and you just make stuff up even if you don't know what those things are supposed to be called.
It's one of my favorite things about when there's like puzzles that you have to figure out together with like symbols. It's not quite asymmetrical co-op. It's more like, because it's like a Among Us-y, it's push the button in Jackbox 4, I think. It's in one of the Jackbox packs. There is a mini game in that where you get one person gets a code that's all symbols, and then two other people get like a block that just has a bunch of different symbols on it. And the person with the code has to like describe the symbols, right? And then the other two people have to find the symbol and then put it in and hope that they're doing it correct. And it's one of my favorite things is like the ways people perceive things differently, right? The different things that people see, someone's like, oh, it looks like someone doing a cartwheel while having a wee, and I'm like,
you have to have a shorthand.
What does that mean?
And then you get it right, and then you're like, oh shit, that guy does look like, yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're just saying that full serious. You're like, okay, do the one where the guy's like doing a cartwheel while doing a wee, and then you're like, yep.
And it's just so funny seeing how people's brains work.
I see it a lot in shooters. I've somehow managed to shoehorn Escape from Tarkov into this, and I'm very proud of myself. But you actually see that a lot, like the way you kind of communicate, like you're moving through a thing and you're like, in Big Red. And it's like, because in my friend group, that Big Red building over there has always been called Big Red. And everyone knows that's Big Red. So you're like, he's going towards Big Red. And new players are like, what? You're like, there's a Big Red warehouse, like 200 meters that way. And he's going that way.
That's his name.
Yeah, that's what it's, and like everyone and I reckon you could poll people to play PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, right? But on that very first map, they had these little 2-story towers with a turret on the top of them and like a weird steepled roof, and everyone in the world called them Wizard Towers or Harry Potters. And I do not know why no one officially has ever done that, but every group that I played PUBG with, and when the summer that came out was like Pokemon Go for shooter fans, so I was playing with everyone. I was like, there were like 200 people I was regularly playing that game with. Every single one of them would be like, yeah, over there by the Wizard Tower. And I would be like, oh, thank God. These are my people.
It is so cool. Just the little like micro languages you develop across all these games with people, especially when you're trying to like work stuff out together. I love it.
And I think that's maybe the core thing of asymmetrical co-ops that like make them work, right? Is like, I enjoyed Fear, but I didn't have to think about it too much. But as soon as you get kind of We Were Here or Operation Tango or any of the Supermassive games or even the Final Fantasy 14 raids, like as soon as you're kind of having to develop that shared language to quickly and effectively communicate the hidden knowledge and like mechanics that you have between each other, I think that's when it's like, that's the chef's kiss moment for me. So maybe that's the bit that I really like about these games, and that's why I kind of hunt them out a little bit.
Nice, yeah. Now I'm thinking, again, I'm just imagining things that don't exist. I'm thinking about how IO Interactive is working on a James Bond game. I'm like, don't do that. Just do Operation Tango. Just make a game where I'm Hitman and my friend is watching Hitman's monitors. I want that game.
You want to be Hitman's friend, don't you? Not even Hitman's handler. You want to be Hitman's friend.
Yeah, I don't want to do the killing. I just want to tell Hitman how to do the killing.
Yeah. That's what I do when I play Hitman. I'm just telling Hitman how to do the killing. Badly.
I love the
every
idea
time.
of like, imagine you are the cameras guy, but before that happens, the hitman is like planning their route, and you're going in with bags of here's a sniper rifle. I put it down here for you. So when he does come in and like climbs the tower, it's like, oh, there's a suitcase there. Thank you so much for putting that there for me.
How cool would that be if you were like the person that went in and like intricately placed all the different items that they would need beforehand? That would be cool.
That. And it'd be less secure, right? Because like the target isn't there yet, so you kind of like, oh yeah, I'll take this duffel bag full of assault rifles in for you. No worries.
You're the setup phase person. That's so fun.
Oh my God, I'm so into this idea. Why did we design a game that doesn't exist yet?
Yeah, honestly, I would love to play a game where I could just play the setup guy. I would be so down for that.
Look, I put
making
the
phone
emetics
calls to various guards.
I put the poison pills in the trash can by Big Red, okay? You know which one Big Red is. You need to get it there.
It's the Big Red one. It's so easy.
So of all the things we've named, like we've gone through, as we originally pointed out, there's not a lot of these on the purist sector, I guess, of asymmetric co-op, but there is we've talked Operation Tango, We Were Here series. We talked, I didn't really mention Clandestine, but that's its name. It's another hacking spy one that I own, but haven't played yet with a friend. Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, Fear 3, Supermassive's horror games, slightly less maybe on the purist side. And then you get into other things, some other shooters that you can play in that way. Am I missing any that we haven't brought up and we want to recommend for this?
I haven't played it. Was Brothers A Tale of Two Sons? Was that asymmetrical?
That one's more direct
just straight
co-op puzzle. Yeah.
I have not played that one. I just know that it was.
We forgot Trine. There's a whole series of Trine games.
I haven't played Trine.
Oh my god!
People. Okay, wait. I saw someone saying this about Trine, but you're in the same place as
yeah, but you're all
Trine.
different people to do different things.
What?
So one of you is a mage and you magic
classes.
stuff, and one of you is a stabby
once again,
man.
RPG classes. Do they count?
But by that case, does that mean that Lost Vikings? And I think I've just named a game older than Mollie for sure. Sorry.
What is this?
So Lost Vikings is a game that Blizzard made before they made Blizzard games, where you were 3 different Vikings. One of you was the fat Viking, one of you was a smart Viking, and one of you was good at swords or something like that. I can't really remember. And then so it was hey, we need someone to weigh this platform down, and the guy would bumble over. I played it on the PlayStation. It was good.
I've never heard of it. I'm so sorry, Jake.
No, it's from the 90s. I just kind of tumbled back down and now I would recommend Operation Tango,
I have just found a Reddit post on r/gaming suggestions. This is 5 years old. So
is it the one that has Trine in it? Because I might have also looked at that.
Yeah, Trine is in it. Also, Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time, which is a game that I totally forgot about Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time. There's one called TikTok, A Tale for Two, which sounds like the kind of a way out, kind of pure asymmetrical co-op where you're having to, cooperation is key as neither of you have the full picture. So that sounds, again, it's that kind of, and it says, all you need is a voice connection. It's that communication, again, the communication, the hidden knowledge, the puzzle solving, the core pillars of an asymmetrical co-op. On this list, there's also Hack Tag. Never heard of it. I'm so sorry. We Need to Go Deeper. And I can't pronounce this last one. Lauren, you have the list. Can you pronounce that last one?
Huh? What? No, I'm not looking at it right now. I just also Googled it earlier.
Barotrauma, sorry.
Oh, Barotrauma,
okay.
Yeah.
Barotrauma, yeah.
Like Space... I actually have played a lot of this. Barotrauma's like Space Station 13 and 14, except instead of being on a spaceship, you're in a submarine. And the stuff outside the submarine is super, super bad. And so you desperately need to keep your submarine intact. A fun thing that Barotrauma does that makes it not quite asymmetrical co-op, though, is that one of you on the submarine can be a bad guy who wants to ensure that everyone but themselves dies.
Oh no. So it kind of goes into
Among Us.
PvP. Yeah, it's Among Us.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with it is that the systems are so mechanically interesting. If you're the engineer and you get traitor, you're cool. I'm going to go outside to fix the outside of the ship. And then before you go outside, you just set all of the gauges and you get out and the ship just implodes and you're cool, job done. It's too easy to be, or you're the security officer. So you're the only person that could stop yourself and you just go get a gun out of the security office and just shoot everyone else. It kind of doesn't quite work in PvP, but it's a lot of fun as a co-op.
Nice.
That's cool. Well, they need to make more. They should make more.
They need to make more. We've recommended as many real games that exist as we have invented ones that don't exist, but we would really
You're
like to.
welcome, game industry.
Yeah, there's your free ideas.
2025.
Oh my god!
This is the Idea Guys podcast. Thank you.
I would love if they made more, but I understand why there's not that many, right? Ultimately, like you say, they're very one and done experiences. They're very puzzly and that could take a lot of work as well. And, a lot of co-op games you can play on your own, right? Whereas asymmetrical co-op, more often than not, relies on you having 2 people, which I guess is already another layer of risk, I guess, when you're developing a game. If you have to have multiple people playing together at the same time. So I understand why there's not more asymmetrical co-op games, But I really want more. I want more so bad.
They're fun.
I think something that's kind of occurred to me while you were saying that, right, is if you are a developer now and things are difficult, like I would love to play Man in Van in 2026, except that do you want to make a game that only like half of your player base is ever going to actually see? Like for me, I'm going to be sitting in this beautiful realization of a van, you know, Unreal Engine 5, the lighting is beautiful, but I will never see the deep labyrinth full of horrors that I am guiding my friend out of because only he gets to see that. I feel like a lot of game development now is like, if I have made this, you should see this.
Right.
Because it's expensive and you want people to see the stuff you work.
For the things you're developing. Yeah. Very true.
For me, there is that payoff because I get to, you know, I could pop the sunroof in my van and, you know, look at a monitor. But I get, they want everyone to be able to experience everything. And I think that's how games are now. And I think asymmetrical co-op games are naturally like, they fence things off. They do take away that power. They are kind of like, this isn't for you because no one's playing it again, right? Like I've not played It Takes Two yet, but like Operation Tango, I could go back and I could solve all of the puzzles that I didn't solve directly, but I don't know if I'd want to. I kind of know how they work, you know?
Yeah, same with We Were Here. Like I did at one point, I replayed the first one with a friend and we swapped roles. And like that was fun to do, but because we already knew how to solve it, it was different that second time. We already knew what was going on.
Same.
It wasn't the same. That's why we need some sandboxy ones. We need some asymmetric sandbox co-op instead of asymmetric puzzle co-op.
I'm sure they're out there.
Yeah.
I am sure they're out there, but more, please.
And if they're not, I guess we're all just going to sit in the van in Phasmophobia and just pretend that that's how it's meant to be played.
Sit in the van. We're like van guys for each other.
What if everybody stays in the van and only one person goes inside?
Yeah, right. That'd be so fun.
You can choose to just pack the van up and leave at any point.
Yeah, so actually, we can leave them in the house.
Well, you can show up and just be like, we haven't found the ghost from our cursory outside investigation, so we're just gonna go. See you later.
Leave.
Bye.
We're not well paid, but we are very alive to paranormal activity.
We survive every mission. Do we identify any ghosts? No, we do not. But we have 100% survival rate, and that is what counts. We go
We could just guess. Like, look at the window, you're like, I reckon this is a gin. Okay,
it might be a gin.
And then we just go, and it's like, it didn't work. Well, maybe tomorrow, guys.
Maybe we'll get it next time.
Oh, right, 100% of the time, 50% of the time. So
terrible ghost hunters, terrible.
Well, thank you guys for coming on and talking about a lot of different asymmetric co-op recommendations for people. As usual, you can find Mollie, Jake, and I's writing on the website. Less of Jake. Jake does more video stuff, but occasionally you'll pop in to write something down.
Yeah.
On pcgamer.com, all the usual news, reviews, guides, opinions, all that great stuff. And as usual, you'll also be able to talk with Mollie and I about this week's episode at forums.pcgamer.com. But until then, thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.